Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Ask Me Anything Day. I've picked 3 questions from those that I've been asked and I'm going to answer them now. Now obviously I've picked the questions so I've got a rough idea what they are, but I've tried not to think about them too much, so hopefully I can give you a really nice answer that's really come straight off my mind. I know sometimes my mind, it works in weird ways. So, question 1. Which do you prefer, piston fillers or converter / cartridges, and why? Interesting question, isn't it? There's so many different ways of filling a pen. The more common ones we've got are, as the question here says, you've got the converter or cartridges, you've got the piston fillers, you've got vacuum fillers, you've got eyedropper fillers. Then you start getting into some of the, I'm going to say older ones, things like where you've got is a lever filler, there's a snorkel filler, loads of different filling mechanisms. I haven't got any experience with a lot of those ones. Of the first 4, so the cartridge, converter, piston filler, vacuum filler and eyedropper, which do I prefer? Let's start with the eyedropper. Really good, you get loads of ink capacity. Not many pens available as eyedroppers, although there are some pens that you can convert. Get loads of ink in them. Downside, if you've got an issue, you can't go in and easily prime the feed because there's no way to get in and force that ink down. Piston fillers. Now let's do vacuum fillers next. Vacuum fillers, very similar to the eyedropper, you can get quite a lot of ink in them. All the vacuum fillers I've got, they've got a shut-off valve so you can seal off the body from the actual section, which is good if you're doing something like where you're traveling. It helps to reduce the possibility of getting issues because of air pressure differences, temperature differences. I'd also, not that I travel very often, I'd also have them upside down so that there's the best chance of having no ink at all in that section to come spurting out. So vacuum the other thing I found with vacuum fillers, they are a complete pain in the backside to clean. Most of the vacuum fillers I've got, you can actually detach the section. So I can detach the section and use a blunt nose syringe to get in there and clean it really well. But things like my Pilot Custom 823, I'm not comfortable taking the section off. So what I have to do is keep standing there, flushing water through until I get clear water coming out. Sometimes that can take me 5-10 minutes. So it's the cleaning which really puts me off those. Piston fillers. Downside with a piston filler, I'm going to start with that. You take up between 1/3 and 1/2 of your pen body for the mechanism. So you lose potential ink capacity. It's very similar to the vacuum filler in terms of cleaning. It can be a pain. Again, most of the ones I've got, you can detach or unscrew the section, or you can pull the nib and feed out, so it makes it a bit easier. But if you were to stand there trying to clean them, so you're going to have to fill it, agitate it a little bit to get all the way around, empty it, refill it, agitate it, it can take a while to do that. So that's the piston filler. Finally, with the cartridge converter, downside with those, ink capacity. You don't get a lot of ink capacity. Some pens come with a cartridge converter, others don't, so you have to buy it separate. I know if you look at the Platinum Preppy, the converter for that costs more than the actual pen. Plus side though, because you've not got a big ink capacity, it runs out quicker, which means if you like to change your inks, you can change your ink faster. So yeah, that's my thoughts on them. Which is my favourite? If I had to go for one and one only, I think I'd go for the piston filler. They're awkward to clean, but most of them are dead simple. They take a reasonable amount of ink, especially if I can get a demonstrator one as well, so I can actually see the ink sloshing around. Really like that. So yeah, that's my answer there, is the piston fillers because of the flexibility. Question number 2. What is the one book you would recommend everyone to read? I had to think about this one a little bit, so this is when I had put some thought into it. The one book I'd recommend everyone to read is The Lord of the Rings. Now, it is a hard book. If you, and I'm talking about the full book, it's about that thick, worth spending the time. Now, I do find whenever I reread this book, the first 100-ish pages are quite heavy going. Once you get past them, it really does pick up. What I'm saying about this is, to me, it's the theming of it. Yes, it's about going and doing something with a ring, but when you look at the theming, it's all about friendships, all about sacrifice for other people. You know, you've got Frodo and Sam. Yes, Sam starts off as being essentially the servant to Frodo's master. But as they go on, you know, that very quickly evolves. And, you know, Sam would do anything for Frodo. I mean, it's, to me, in one respect, it's like a love type relationship that develops between them. You've got Gimli and Legolas, two different races that are often at war against each other, or often dislike each other, and the friendship that builds between them. It's just, to me, it's all about that. Yes, there's a lot of Judeo-Christian theming around it. You know, you've got the battle of good and evil. You've got the idea of keeping on going, persisting with what you're doing, you know, sacrificing for other people. I just think the whole messaging of the book is really what we should be looking for in today's society. So, question number 3. How do you pick an ink for a pen? Oh, isn't this one an interesting one? How do I pick an ink for a pen? So, first of all, I tend to go for matchy-matchy. So, I try to match on roughly the same colour family. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll go for something completely different. But 90% of the time, I'd go for a matching ink for the pen body. I then look at the inks that are in roughly that same family. They don't have to be an exact match, just roughly in the family. And there, what I'm doing is I'm looking at, when did I last use the ink? What are the ink properties? So if it's a shimmer ink, I don't like using a shimmer ink in a pen where I can't easily pull out the nib and feed, because if you get shimmer stuck in the feed, you're going to mess up that pen for every ink. I look at colours, so I like saturated colours, but it's got to match the pen. It's also got to match, you know, partly the time of year. So, you know, I like less saturated inks more in the winter time, I find, and in the summer I like the brighter type inks. Saying that, as I said, sometimes I don't go for matchy-matchy. Black pens is a brilliant example. With black pens, you could really use any colour. Prime example is my Homo sapiens. It's a black pen. In there, I've got an orange ink. Why did I do that? Because Homo sapiens, the body, is made from lava, obviously mixed with resin. And it's that black of the solidified lava. Whereas the ink, it's an orangey ink, and it's called Fireside Snug, is the one I really like in there. And what that is that's a ink that reminds me of the flowing lava. So I've got a match there in terms of how they make me feel. So how they make me feel, that's also something which I try to take into consideration. Yeah, it's quite a battle sometimes with the inks. And especially at the moment, because at the moment I am limiting myself to just using my ink vent and now colour vent inks, because I've got that many of them that I want to get them used up. I will occasionally pick an ink outside of those, but that's very rare at the moment. It's all about using them up, finding interesting combinations, finding things that essentially spark joy. So they're my 3 questions for this month. Any questions you want me to answer, please drop in the comments down below. I'd love to know them because my list is starting to run a little bit short. I'd love to start answering more questions that you want to ask. I'll talk to you again soon.